Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about Mythic Plus, and this video is going to be a somewhat basic overview of how to get into Mythic Plus groups easier, how to build up your rated.io score, how to or where to get the best resources in terms of WEAKAURAS, in terms of add-ons that will make your life much easier while trying to apply for groups or when trying to complete those keys. We'll also be looking at how to actually form a group and how to, the resources or the communities that are available there. So again, this is somewhat basic. If you're a veteran of World of Warcraft, this might not be for you, but if you're looking at improving your Mythic Plus game, hopefully this video will help you. So first of all, let's look at rated.io score, and this is going to be a simple explanation of what it is. So first of all, you don't have to have any add-ons, you don't have to have anything for you to actually start accumulating your rated.io score. Because of the way that it works, you'll enter into a plus top 500 leaderboard every time you do any dungeons. By default, everyone will have a rated.io score, so maybe you start noticing that, what is the score, how do I get this higher, I can't join groups because my score seems to be low. So first of all, the way that it works, there are 10 dungeons overall in BfA, you notice them all here, and the key to getting a higher IO score is trying to complete as many of those dungeons, or at least have at least some kind of a key done on every dungeon. You might have favorite dungeons, you might have, things like Ataldazar, Freehold, which are very, very popular right now because they're somewhat easier than other ones, but the key is not to focus on your favorite dungeons, is to actually get an average, a good average of all the dungeons done. So that means running that Shrine of the Storm a couple of times and trying to get a good key. It's basically your IO score is as good as the weakest key that you've done. So trying to get a good general average is the key if you want to get a good IO score. Now there are a couple of complications here when doing your keys. So you might notice that if you're doing a key late in the reset, so reset happens on Wednesdays, and let's say you do a key on, I don't know, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you're doing it with a guild group from the same realm, and your realm is high population, all of a sudden your plus 10 key might not even be registered. And that's because of the way that Blizzard actually adds these keys in their leaderboard. There's leaderboard of top 500 keys per dungeon per realm. So if you're in a high populated server, this leaderboard is going to get filled up pretty quickly. It resets every Wednesday. So one of the general consensus or general advice is, if you're running in a guild group from the same server and it's high population, try and run it at the start of the reset, so Wednesday, Thursday, where not many people, or at least the leaderboard is still relatively empty. So no matter what level key you're going to do, that's going to be registered in the leaderboard. That leaderboard is going to be pulled up by rated.io, and rated.io will assign a score to you based on how fast you completed the dungeon, whether you completed it in time, and things like that. If you are running it later down the week, there's a chance, especially for high population servers, like for example on my server on RavenQuest, right now they're not really that high. You might not even get a score assigned for a plus 10 key because there's that many people doing keys. Another work around this is also to try and group up with people from low population servers. So maybe you're pugging a group, try and get some guy or some girl out from a server that has a relatively low population, so their leaderboard is never full. So all of a sudden, any kind of key you do is going to be registered on their leaderboard, and it's going to be fine. So there's kind of ways of trying to play around this, but the general rule or the summary of rated.io: do all of the dungeons that are there, try and get a good general completion of all the keys. Do keys as early as possible if you're running in a guild group in a high population server, and things like that. So that should net you a decent score. Now let's look at some of the add-ons that are really, really useful for anyone who's doing Mythic Plus. And one of the add-ons that I feel is really quite good, I would say, is pre-made group filter. And pre-made group filter is just a simple add-on that allows you to, exactly what it says, filter out groups based on whether they have a healer, whether they have a tank, and things like that, which difficulty, which level. And one of the really cool things about this specific add-on is also the fact that you can actually look at each group and look at the composition of the group. So all of a sudden you notice that on a tyrannical week, this group is looking for a healer, but they don't have anyone who has battle res, and you might think twice about applying to that group because they don't have a battle res, it's not the most optimal comp, you need that key in time. So it's really, really useful add-on that I feel should almost be part of the looking for group tool, but it's not. So this add-on really helps out with any other filtering options that you might need. If we look at another tool that's become really popular, that is Method Dungeon Tools. And Method Dungeon Tools is an add-on that's probably the most popular in higher keys. What it basically allows you to do is it lets you plan out the dungeon, what each mob gives towards the percentage of the dungeon. It lets you know which mob is going to be infested, what route you're going to be taking. You can, you can share this, you can include these little notifications where you're going to maybe shroud. Overall, this is really great because it works for different affixes, especially for affixes like teaming, where all of a sudden the percentages are different. I would consider this add-on as one of the mandatory add-ons for each and every tank. Again, if you're not doing really high keys, this is probably not going to be that popular, but for every key, I think 12 and plus that I've done, and I pug a lot of keys, probably 95% of my keys done in BfA have been pugs, and every pug that was around 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever, they were using this tool to really plan out, to really know which trash pack they're going to pull. Maybe they're going to do a death run, maybe they're going to use shroud and things like that. It is almost mandatory for tanks, because tanks, you're going to set the pace, you need to know the route. There's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, so if you're a new beginner tank, it might feel very daunting when going to a new dungeon, not knowing the specific route. And especially because this add-on lets you import and export routes, it can really simplify the learning experience for a new tanks, especially when you consider that there are specific websites like Questionably Epic which have exports or imports for each of the dungeon routes. So example, if I need a freehold route, I can just go to this website here and I can just import this string to my add-on and then check my add-on, and then I'm able to see, okay, he does this ads, they do this ads, they do that, and things like that. So all of a sudden you know which way to go. And this can be very useful for any new tanks coming into BfA, because there's, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is forming your own Mythic Plus group. So if you are a beginner in Mythic Plus and you're kind of looking into pushing your score, there's a high chance that at this point in the expansion, you won't get invited to high keys, especially if you don't have a high rated RYO score. Now, I'm not saying rated RYO is the solution to everything. It really isn't. I feel that to some extent it's good and bad. But at the same time, if rated RYO wasn't there, I'm sure people would find other ways to actually measure the quality of players that are there, because gear is no longer a good indication of how good you are, because gear is readily available to everybody. So to some extent, if you don't have a high IO score right now, there's very high chance that you won't get invited. So running your own keys is really important. If you're looking to form your own group, there are a couple of Discord servers available there for Mythic Plus communities. There's one that has become really popular, and it's called Keys Boys. It's a Discord server that has really nice assigned roles for healers, DPS, tanks, whatever, and you can filter out the keys that you want to look for. Like, say for example, looking for plus 10 keys or plus 11s or whatever, and you're looking for someone with specific raid IO score. There's a lot of nice mechanics there in the Discord server to allow you to filter all of that out. Again, like a lot of other things or a lot of other communities, the Alliance side of the Mythic Plus community is pretty inactive when compared to the Horde side, but that's just the way it is right now. But this Discord server is pretty good right now. I highly recommend it, especially if you're on a Horde side of World of Warcraft. Another thing that's really emerged in BfA is that deletion of keys. So deletion has become a really common practice now. So if you're doing a dungeon right now, and there's been more clarification made in Wowhead and things like that, but if you're doing a dungeon and let's say you have a pretty bad key, you're doing someone else's key, you can actually delete your key during the dungeon and you will get a new key based on specific few things. So you might get a key one level below the keystone that received in the weekly cache. So let's say for example you got a 10 this week. If you delete your key during a run, you probably get a +9 of a random key, or one level lower than the current keystone you just finished. So for example, if you had a +5 from your weekly cache and you somehow managed to get into a +10 and you want to delete your key, you can delete your key during the run and you will get a random +9 key, which can be really cool in farming those different dungeons. Because like I said, don't focus on your favorite dungeons, try and get a good general completion of all the keys out there. So now let's look at some of my favorite weak auras that are out there. And like I mentioned, you might be a person who hasn't used add-ons before, but add-ons can really improve your game. They can really add visual and audio cues to things that are happening. You might not even need to know the mechanics of a boss, but weak auras can really guide you through that process. So one of my favorite weak auras right now would probably, well, there's a list of them, but I have to say that the BfA Dungeons by Rello is really cool. This is a general package weak aura for all the dungeons that are out there. They'll give you visual and audio cues for each of the bosses and trash. Let's say there's a trash that's about to explode, it'll tell you like run away and things like that. It's really useful, and it can help out for a lot of the dungeons. Almost mandatory in my opinion. Then things like interrupt trackers and cooldown trackers. Now this is something that I've seen in a lot of the pugs, and especially lower pugs, is that interrupts are not utilized. And considering that so much of BfA dungeon success comes from correct interrupts and correct stuns, having this weak aura or having any minimalistic weak aura that tells you, okay, this guy has used their interrupt, it's my time to interrupt, is really important, is extremely important. Like I said, a lot of the trash right now can just, you know, interrupting a trash can really lead to a much easier run. So having something like this is really cool, and this weak aura is highly customizable. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of components to it. Another weak aura that is more specific on, you know, affixes is the explosive orbs one, especially considering that it highlights the frame of the explosive orbs. You won't have to tab through, like, especially if there's like 20 ads or something like that, you won't have to tab it, you can just see it straight away, you can select it and kill it. And fell explosives are, you know, quite hard right now. They have been nerfed just when I'm making this video, but again, affix weak auras are again really cool and really needed. Now another weak aura that is more specific for healers is BfA Dungeons targeted spells. And as you can see here, it does exactly what it says. If there's a mob or a boss that's about to use a specific spell or a really important ability on your party members, you'll highlight them. And you'll know in advance your mage or whatever, your rogue, is about to get hit by a firebolt or get hit by a specific ability that requires a lot of healing, so you're already a couple of seconds ahead or ready to heal that person. I feel this is a really cool weak aura. There's the same equivalent weak aura that's available for raiding as well, but this is mainly specifically for BfA Dungeons. So this has been my overview of the best resources in terms of add-ons, weak auras, in terms of Discord service, in terms of what Radar Yo is, because I know a lot of people who are unaware of the score, and yet they feel they're not sure why they're not getting invited to groups. They want to improve, they want to get better and things like that. So hopefully these resources will help you. Let me know if I missed out on any of the important resources. I'll try to include them. Everything is going to be included in the description below. All the links are there. Let me know if I missed out on something. Let me know if this is somewhat helpful, and I'll see you in my next video.